Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I was in New York working on my own projects, trying to make a living as an actor.
Gene Hackman has always been one of those actors who seem entirely uninterested in the mythology of Hollywood. A man with an enduring presence on screen, he has a knack for slipping into roles with such seamless authenticity that audiences rarely think about the craft behind the performance.
Are you open?
You have to be a member to drink here.
Member? A member of what?
He has often downplayed his success, describing himself not as a leading man, but as a character actor who simply put in the work and made the most of it.
Oh, to grab the bed while you were there!
My God, you're really prime, Ellen, you know that? I catch you screwing another guy and you attack my life!
But for all his humility, Hackman's approach to acting was anything but casual. He was a keen observer, an actor who studied those who came before him with an eye for what made them great and what could be adapted into his own style.
He went into a bar one night and he did the scene that's in the film now where Popeye comes in and yells out, "Popeye's here, get your hands on the bar." Now, he did that.
All right, Popeye's here. Get your hands on your heads, get off the bar and get on the wall.
But he did it for real. I mean, there were real bad dudes in there. And so I could see that was possible.
Move, face the wall, turn around there.
If a guy was tough enough, strong enough, a real police officer could get away with that.
When Hackman spoke about his influences, it wasn't the usual roll call of Golden Age idols or method icons. Instead, his admiration gravitated toward actors who brought something distinctive to the screen, those who mastered the art of nuance, timing, and presence without ever seeming to demand attention. He found inspiration in performers who could command a scene through subtlety and precision, actors who could convey an entire story in a glance or a shift in posture. It wasn't always about the biggest names or the most celebrated careers. Sometimes it was about those who, despite their talent, never quite received the recognition they deserved. One actor who left a lasting impression on Hackman was James Cagney, whom he once described simply, "He had great timing and vitality." Cagney was an undeniable force, a performer who seemed to exist in a state of perpetual motion, infusing every role with an infectious energy that never felt forced. Whether portraying a ruthless gangster in The Public Enemy or showcasing his musical talents in Yankee Doodle Dandy, Cagney had a rhythm all his own, something Hackman deeply admired. Timing, Hackman often suggested, was everything in acting, and Cagney had it in spades. He knew when to hold back, when to let loose, and how to keep an audience hanging on his every word. For Hackman, it was never just about raw charisma, it was about control, about knowing exactly how much to give in any given moment. But for all of Cagney's larger-than-life presence, Hackman also found inspiration in those who operated on an entirely different frequency. Laird Cregar, an actor whose career was tragically brief, fascinated him for the sheer complexity he brought to the screen. He had so many layers, even though he was young, Hackman observed, and indeed Cregar was a study in contradictions, his imposing frame and deep voice often masking a surprising emotional vulnerability. In films like The Lodger, he was able to project both menace and profound sadness in equal measure, hinting at a depth that far exceeded the expectations placed upon him. Hackman, who built his own career on playing characters with complicated inner lives, clearly recognized in Cregar an actor unafraid to embrace the darkness and ambiguity of human nature.
It's always one more. They get stale so fast I never have time to do anything else. I won't do it.
And then there was Ralph Richardson, an actor who, to many, epitomized the very essence of British theatrical tradition. Hackman described him as wonderful, but reserved special praise for his final screen performance in Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. It's an unexpected choice, considering Richardson's storied career, but perhaps that's precisely why it resonated with Hackman. In Greystoke, Richardson's portrayal of the aging Earl of Greystoke carried a quiet dignity, an emotional weight that required no grandstanding to be effective. There was a sense of history behind every gesture, a lifetime of experience woven into every line delivery, qualities that Hackman himself would later become known for.
In the end, they have nothing. Never sell. Never ever sell.
Of course, no conversation about acting influences would be complete without mentioning Marlon Brando, a name that looms over the profession like few others. Hackman's assessment of Brando was uniquely perceptive. He used more of his feminine side than anyone else, but also had great masculinity. It's a statement that captures the essence of what made Brando such a revelation in his time, the ability to balance raw power with moments of startling tenderness.
Just remember what Huey Long said, that every man's a king and I'm the king around here. And don't you forget it.
Brando was never content to play a character on a single note. His performances were symphonies of contradictions, blending vulnerability with dominance, hesitation with conviction. Hackman, who often played men burdened by their own complexities, clearly found inspiration in Brando's fearless emotional honesty. But Hackman's early career wasn't just shaped by those he watched on screen, it was also influenced by the relationships he built along the way. During his struggling years in New York, he shared a flat with Dustin Hoffman, another actor determined to make it against the odds.
Terry Bishop is doing Iceman Cometh, right? Didn't you promise to send me up for that part? Am I wrong? Didn't you tell me I was gonna get a reading for that part?
The two would often escape their frustrations by heading up to the rooftop with a pair of drumsticks in hand, hammering out rhythms into the city air, a ritual that, in hindsight, seems like an apt metaphor for their careers. Both men spent years searching for their break, facing rejection after rejection, but through it all, they found solace in their shared belief that their time would come. What stands out most about Hackman's reflections on his influences is the variety of qualities he admired. There was the precision and energy of Cagney, the layered intensity of Krieger, the quiet strength of Richardson, and the emotional fluidity of Brando. Each of these actors brought something unique to the table, but what they all shared was an ability to disappear into their roles without losing themselves completely, something Hackman himself would come to master over the course of his own career. As Hackman's own star rose, he never lost sight of the lessons he had gleaned from those who inspired him. Whether playing a hard-nosed detective in The French Connection, a paranoid surveillance expert in The Conversation, or a washed-up cowboy in Unforgiven, he brought a dedication to authenticity that never wavered. He wasn't interested in the trappings of fame or the accolades. He was interested in the work, in finding the honesty within each character and delivering it without fuss or flourish. In a career that spanned decades, Hackman earned the admiration of audiences and fellow actors alike, but it's clear that his own admiration remained firmly with those who had shaped his journey. There's something reassuring about the idea that even actors as accomplished as Hackman have their own personal heroes, figures they look up to, study, and learn from. It's a reminder that acting, at its core, is about constant evolution, about finding inspiration in unexpected places and carrying it forward. And though Hackman has long since stepped away from the spotlight, content to live a quieter life away from the industry, one can imagine him looking back at those who inspired him with the same quiet respect he always carried. They were the actors who set the bar high, who made him want to be better, and in doing so, helped shape one of the most remarkable careers in modern cinema.